So we had 124 member states actually, and 140 companies, roughly 1,000 member states delegates and 400 private sector, so 1,400 people. So there was a lot of buzz, really, and like you said, Andrei, I found the exhibition space also to be really exciting. There were two member states there, but most of the exhibitors were private sector companies. And it's really quite unique in the UN setting to be able to do that. So that was really exciting. Yes, loads of events, parallel events happening. And those two outcome documents, the call to action on combating fraud and the global PPP framework, were endorsed. Plus, there were also those pledges that member states and private sector companies and international organizations and civil society actors also made during the summit. So it was really kind of more the beginning of a journey than the end. Even though we do have to recover a little bit afterwards. It was a big push, I think, for all of us. But yeah, very encouraging results.
So as Riikka said, we had a lot of parallel events happening, and I think this reflects the diversity, the diverse range of topics that are very necessary throughout the entire anti-fraud dialogue that we need to have. So I think one topic that was consensus across all stakeholders was the need for collaboration to tackle the threat of fraud. And the Global Fraud Summit really discussed what exactly does this collaboration mean, what are the different ways it can look like, how it has taken place, and how can we learn from countries and sectors that have already done so. We also talked about how fraud needs to be prioritized at the highest level because it requires a whole of government approach, but also a whole of society approach. And that's where the private sector can also come in. We talked about how public-private partnerships are no longer a nice to have today, but very much a necessity. And one of my favorite parts was to kind of debunk the mystery of what PPP can look like, because when it comes to the government efforts, a lot of our conversations at Interpol, it seems to be a very difficult topic to open up into, but I think the Global Fraud Summit really showcased that there are different types of cooperation that can happen, and you can start small to start building trust and to see what the public-private partnerships can offer you before going into deeper corporations that facilitate better information sharing for operational collaboration and things like that. And we also talked about the importance of having national anti-scam centers and where the private sector can also contribute here.
I would just like to add kind of the victim angle, because I think that was also really important to hear from victims. Basically,
yeah, many people mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, we always talk about these numbers, but behind every single number there is a human being, a human story, and so it was really important to hear from victims, survivors of fraud as well. And one more thing that I also like to highlight, really kind of concrete. We had some concrete discussions also on how to share information from private to public, private to private, and so forth. Because of course, it's a difficult topic, and it's a very technical topic, and we have to kind of move the needle there as well. How do we actually do this in concrete terms? So, but again, I really think it was an amazing beginning of the journey, but we still have a long way to go to really kind of forge those solutions and come up with very concrete solutions and responses to the problem.
I think I came away with a really strong sense that fraud is not like, whether it is, should or shouldn't be an international priority. It is now an international priority from a security perspective, from a serious organized crime perspective, and something we should all be doing something about. We at GAS obviously were delighted to be sponsoring it, and kind of shout out also to the other sponsors, of course, we should name them. We've got governments of UK, Canada, Singapore, as well as Amazon chain analysis, Meta, Santander, and TikTok. But I think the thing I found was quite interesting is in terms of kind of some of the more technical discussions sometimes, but like I had a really interesting debate about the industrialization of fraud, how we treat it as a as a service. We don't treat it just as a kind of as a crime. How fraud is changing with the, kind of the rapid development of AI, agentic AI, or kind of the things which are likely to increase its scale or the quality of the deception, and therefore the seriousness of the harm. I think one of the other elements, especially in terms of when talking to the other governments present, was the significant difference in terms of approach, but also significant difference in terms of seriousness and prioritization given to the same issue in sometimes neighboring countries. And I think it really underlines the requirement for a lot stronger global coordination on the issue of fraud. I think those were some of the most exciting discussions, but also some of the ones that I think made me pause the most.